All right, we are going to try this again. It is March 20 something, 3rd, I believe. I haven't done a podcast in almost 6 months. So I'm going to try. If you're on Instagram and happen to follow me, one of my millions of followers, you can see a short video. I did try to podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I had a Yoo-hoo incident. So I was in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and where I grew up, Yoo-hoo was a thing. It's sort of everywhere. It's harder to find here, especially in the glass bottles. Those are the best ones. So I was in this hotel for a pickleball certification by myself. I thought I'll try to podcast. I got myself a Yoo-hoo, some snacks. I was ready to go. So during the podcast, I was about 10 minutes in. I opened up a Yoo-hoo, took a drink, and immediately started coughing. Could not stop. I had been sick for a couple of months and the cough hung on. It's still there, but I think I can make it through this. But I start coughing and I couldn't stop. And it went on for, God, 10, 15 minutes to the point where I thought I might die in this hotel room in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Um, so anyway, I had to stop. I thought I'll edit this out, but it was just too much. I felt terrible. So I'm gonna try again. And I do not have a Yoo-hoo, but if you haven't had Yoo-hoo, you need to get one. It's a chocolate drink. It is not chocolate milk. If you're a Hoosier, it's a chocolate drink. It's basically chocolate water, and it's the greatest thing ever. I can't drink things quickly, like I wasn't a beer chugger or anything like that. I'm a sipper, but I can chug Yoo-hoo. I can down a bottle in one go. It's that good. So my Yoo-hoo incident, you can see on Instagram, Scott Ficks-Tennis and Pickleball. Um, I'm not sure why it's been 6 months. I sort of lost my groove. I do have one person to blame, and that's my friend Kayla, who you've heard on my podcast, one of my favorite episodes. So she started her own podcast. It's called Something to Say, and you can find it on Spotify. I highly recommend listening. And I've talked to her about it, and I sort of blame her because one of the reasons I stopped was because hers was so good. She knows this. I've told others. She tells a real life story about serious topics with her and her husband Jake's their little girl Janie. Um, it's quite an amazing story. And I called her after I listened to it and yelled at her because I was trying to get to Michigan at the time, and I'm crying like a baby in the car. And I started thinking how important hers was and how juvenile and um, sort of irrelevant mine are in most cases, because I just like to talk about random stuff, and hers was such a powerful story. So I did sort of lose like what I'm not doing anything important for the world, but I'm going to try again with the reminder to myself that I started this for two reasons. One, to stay connected with my students during lost jobs and COVID, and two, just for fun, to sit behind a microphone and talk gibberish. So I'm hopeful to get back to that today. There may be a little tennis talk, but I don't have a ton. Um, so I blame Kayla, and like I said, if you haven't listened to it, find on Spotify or wherever. It's called Something to Say. If you want me to send you the link, just you know where to find me. But it's a great story. So I've got a couple of shows I wanted to mention that I've been watching. First one is The Pit. It's on Max. If you were a fan of ER, you'll like this show. And according to the reviews, everything I've Googled, doctors I've asked, it's actually the most realistic medical show around, possibly ever. And it's with Dr. Carter from ER. He's the main guy in a trauma um, trauma hospital in Pittsburgh that's not doing well. So there's money issues and they how many patients they get in. But the only thing I have trouble with is because of me, it's gross. Like it's so realistic when they do procedures and cut people open and stuff happens. I'm turning away. I can't do it. It makes me I just can't. And I can't also imagine being in that situation of the patients having that done. So I highly recommend The Pit if you are a fan of ER. The next one, And the second one is Righteous Gemstones. It's also on Max, I believe. It's just really funny. It's about the family of a mega church who, probably taken straight from the headlines, are not who you think they are, and the crazy stuff they get into. It's a comedy. It's also highly inappropriate. You may judge me because I think the humor is great, but it's got some really good people in it. That I'd recommend it if you have an odd sense of humor and you don't get offended. If you get offended a lot, do not watch Righteous Gemstones. But those are the two I'm watching now, with some others on the list for me to get to. So again, I'm going to be as random as I usually am. I saw this post on Instagram last night that sort of reminded me a little bit of me and where I came from, and possibly sums up who I might be. So it says this. It says, "You think you're an introvert because you like being alone, but in reality, you just love being at peace. And you're actually extroverted around people who bring you peace." So I've talked before in other episodes and sort of telling my story. I had some days in my growing up, specifically probably middle school into high school, very shy, um, awkward, couldn't talk to humans, not a ton of friends. And I always thought I was just that. I was just shy, and I didn't know the word introvert at that time. And I've always enjoyed being alone. One of my favorite things now is to go get a cup of coffee by myself and read my book. I like long drives. When I go to a lot of different states to do my pickleball workshops, and I don't mind those at all. I get a night in the hotel. I can read my book, eat some snacks, try my yoo-hoo. So I always thought I was introverted, I guess, but in my job and my career and my whole life is extroverted. I'm in front of people. I really don't have a fear of talking to anyone ever. I prefer to be speaking to large groups of people versus small groups of people. Um, I can speak in front of a lot as long as I'm in charge. I'm not a great assistant. Um, but the part about actually extroverted around people who bring you peace, I think, nails what I am, because when I'm around the right people, I'm comfortable to be who I am, say what I want to say, and have that safe space that I'm going to say something inappropriate or wrong or outrageous, and the people I'm with aren't going to judge me to my face, is what I'm saying. Um, so I thought it was pretty valid and likely to a lot of people. I guess the more comfortable you are around people, the more likely you are to express yourself and your thoughts and be who you are. And I've mentioned in the past that the whack saved me. I went from a world of every day being surrounded by people and a team to 2 or 3 years of just me. And that's when I started realizing that maybe I need that team around me and those people. But I just thought it was great. You can see it again. I posted it on my stuff. Um, so this is sort of, I mentioned Kayla before. Um, I'm blaming Kayla for giving me permission to talk about this. It's not bad. It's just a couple weeks ago was my 1 year um, anniversary. Let's celebrate, from being in the hospital. And I March 4th, I went in. And there's a lot that I've never forgotten. I don't think I will. That I always think about it every day. Doesn't There's not a day that goes by in my world where something doesn't remind me of that time. And it can be anything. Kayla mentions on her time in the hospital was the beeping sounds of the machines, and how that triggers her. And she's right. It triggers me too. When I had to go back recently, I heard some beeping, and I didn't like it. Made me anxious. Mine is doors opening I don't freak out. So if you're near me and open a door, I'm not gonna, go crazy and run and hide. It's just every time that week in the hospital, the door opened, typically something bad was about to happen to me. Um, Shots, procedures, swallowing cameras, pills, tubes going in parts of me that I didn't want tubes going in, taking me somewhere, giving me bad news, um, whatever. So many, it was rarely positive. So every time that door opened and they do the knock first and they open the door, and um, sometimes it was just simple. I finally was asleep and they woke me up and take my blood. So things like that still bother me. Um, Seeing a hospital room, I went through a bunch of pictures that day, the day I went in, and just seeing it takes me back there and gives me some, I don't know if it's anxiety or just thoughts. And I just wrote down some words about my thoughts on this, and they're sad, fearful, thankful, curious. I was so curious about how they do things. I think that helped me get through some of it because I was constantly, if you know me, you know I ask a lot of questions and I would like to know how things work. I asked a lot of questions. I wanted to know how everything operated, and it keeps my mind from going to dark places. Scared, um, all that kind of stuff. Happy for the people that took care of me. If you listen to my medical podcast, which is still up, you can go listen to it. It's still the best one I'll ever do because it had no notes and I just told my story. Um, those people, Liz and W, who saved me, um, not just medically and making sure I didn't die, but mentally allowing me to get angry, cry, swear, question them, all the stuff you go through when you're in that situation. I wrote down guilt. This one it's strange for me because there are so many people that did not have had these experiences and did not come back from them. They're gone, or have long term health issues, or did not weren't as lucky as I was that I walked out. So I have this guilt that I keep telling my story and it keeps on my mind and I talk about it, and I do a whack you for our company. I've done it twice and I tell my story, and I'm always in the back of my head like there's somebody in this room who has it far worse than me. And people tell me it's my story. I get to say it if I want to. And so that's sort of what this is, but there's a little bit of guilt that I got out of it and so many people don't. Um, so it definitely bothered me that day. Um, I struggled with some pictures, people bringing it up, like Facebook memories. I love. It's one good thing about Facebook, but unfortunately, my memories of those days popped up and they bothered me. Um, I'm happy to be here, but it brings back some stuff, and that seeing, knowing for the first time my family saw me very, very weak and unable to help, um, not being someone who is supposed to fix things, and I was unable to. I was the one needing fixed. Really difficult. But good news is that I did have my, and this leads to my next stuff where I get to make fun of myself, and so do you. I did go back and have my yearly blood work done. Um, all the good stuff I needed, my blood numbers, everything was good. I'm back to normal. I'm not dying. No long term effects from that, why I was there. But I'm almost 51. I'm a month away, and I got other stuff now. And that's where I'm at, and will explain my situation. So I get the blood work back, all the good stuff. Turns out I've got a multitude of other things that I get to deal with, um, that I can deal with, things I've known forever. Um, One is my cholesterol, slightly high, slightly. I'm barely above normal, but I got to bring it that down. So I started working on that. I still have to get more protein. For those of you who have to get more protein, how do you do it? It is so difficult. I wasn't even close to what I was getting, and for the last 10 days, I've been trying to get it up, and I've been protein shakes, meat, protein bars, chicken, fish, as much as I can. It is so hard to still get it where it needs to be. So I'd love for some advice on that. I found a couple things that I like that I don't like, but the big one I've started. I have to take iron pills. My iron numbers are still too low for my age and where I'm at in the world. So I've started that. The biggest one is, and it's weird to say this, but the doctor has told me that I am pre-diabetic. I have a chance to get the Beetus. And if you watch The Office, you'll know why I call it the Beetus, and my whole family does. So I'm not going to get it, but I eat too much sugar. So if you've listened to this before, I even have a podcast, probably two of them, where the image I used was a picture of Little Debbie, who makes the greatest cakes and treats ever made. Since I was a kid, I've told the story that I used to go. We didn't have a ton of it in our house, but every time I went to Grandma's house, Grandma Ficks in Louisville, she had a drawer full of Little Debbie's, and my brother and I would go to it, and that was it. We'd eat like crazy, and I got used to it. And that somebody told me that is those became my happy food because it's good memories of hanging out at my grandma's house and seeing my family and going on a trip. And so I have been eating too much sugar for 40 years, possibly more. I don't have dinner without dessert. If there's a box of Oreos in my house, I eat it. I struggle that if there's anything in the house sweet, I have to have it. It's an addiction. I put too much coffee in, too much sugar in my coffee. If there's a bakery, I'm in the bakery and I'm eating whatever they have to offer. And I've known for years that this is going to get me. And it finally got me because my glucose numbers are through the roof, way too high. So here's what I've done. Today, if I can make it through this, like I said, it is actually March 23rd. If I can make it through today, it will be 11 straight days without any additional sugar. No dessert, no soda, adding nothing except for my morning coffee. I have gotten rid of my second cup of morning coffee, and I've gotten rid of any evening coffee, no Starbucks. My favorite coffee shop, the Bread Peddlers, hasn't seen me because it's a bakery and a coffee shop, and that place is killing me. So I've made it. Hopefully, if I can get through tonight, 11 straight days eating well. I've set a goal of 2,500 calories a day. I've stayed under it for 11 days. I've got to watch cholesterol and carbohydrates, and I've stayed under everything that I'm recommended at my age for 11 days. And the first few really sucked. Like I rummaged through the cabinets. I found things that I would normally eat the box of, and I didn't. So I'm trying. I will fail. I'm going on a trip to Florida in a week with my buddies, Frika and Niche, and I'm going to fail. I think I'll do better than I would have before this, but I think I'll definitely have a problem there. There's going to be some hot fudge brownie with vanilla ice cream and sprinkles on it that's about to get destroyed when I get there. But the other good stuff, I am doing it again, training for a half marathon. April 26th, day after my birthday, I'm going to do it again. So I have been training, got 9 miles in yesterday. So I've got some good exercise. Although my friend Julie tells me running is not exercise. I have to start lifting heavy objects, which is a hard no for me. That's not going to happen. So the next health issue, because this is Scott's health issues, I'm going to change the title of my podcast. I've got more skin cancer. It's the good kind. It's the basal cell. This will be my fourth time having it removed, and that's tomorrow at noon. They're going to cut me open right on my forehead, so I'm going to have a cool Harry Potter scar. pretty similar to a place I had it before. It's the good stuff. I'm not concerned about it health wise. I would prefer not to go spend 4 hours getting chopped up and getting it tested and possibly cut open again. But that'll be done, um, and I'll get past that. And then lastly, in my Scott's Health Minute, I got my first, well, it's temporary right now, but my first crown on a tooth. So since I turned 50, my health world has gone down the shitter. Sorry, Mom, if I swore, but it's my podcast. When you join me, you can say shitter too. Wait, I said it again. So I got my first crown. I was biting on a carrot at lunch a few weeks ago, a little baby carrot. Just took a bite, and my tooth fell off. Half of it just broke off. And I'm like, what is this what happens? You hit 50 and your teeth start just falling out randomly. I can't eat a carrot anymore. So yeah, I luckily it broke off. Didn't hurt. Didn't even know it was there. I took a bite and thought my carrot was old or busted or something. Turns out it was my tooth. I still have it in a Ziploc bag if you'd like to see it. Um, so I went to the dentist. It didn't hit any nerves. I had no pain at all. But I did go last week and I have a temporary crown. That took about 2 hours. The worst part of it didn't really hurt. The shots for numbing was the usual discomfort for a split second, but the worst was the smell. If you've had a crown, oh my gosh, the sound and the smell, the sound of the drill grinding, and then this burning smell. She told me I had an old silver filling that was burning. It was smoking, and I could smell it. It smelled like there's a campfire in my mouth. It was so weird. But other than just sitting there for 2 hours with them banging around on me, wasn't bad. I took a couple Tylenol and was fine. Back to my 1 year medical situation. I have not had ibuprofen in over a year. That's the one thing the doctors told me to avoid. So I was able to cut that out. If I was as good at other things like I am cutting out ibuprofen, I'd be really good at something. I'm not real good at stuff, but if I could lift weights the same discipline I have with getting rid of ibuprofen, I'd be jacked. So I got a crown. I go back and get the real one, the full one, in a couple of weeks. They'll glue that in and shouldn't be an issue. I'm just more worried about it coming off. But I do expect most of you to call me king now that I got my first crown. I'll be getting a second too. I've got another tooth they found that's jacked up. So I am taking care of myself all in 1 month. But if you've got any good foods, I said good. So my coach Flamer told me, and we've got this doctor back home in Vincennes. His name's Dr. Rohr, kind of a legend, everybody's doctor, kind of a country doctor. He told Coach once that if it tastes good, spit it out. And then he said, if it tastes good, it's not good. And I agree with it because I can't find anything I love. Um, I've been eating strawberries, bananas, Cosmic Crisp apples. If you haven't had those, they're the best apple. But if you got any good ideas, especially for protein bars, shakes, something that jacks that number up, I'd love to hear them. But if it involves tofu or vegetables, I'm out. We don't even waste your time on me. So let's get to good news, interesting news. I hope I can talk about it. I did not ask permission, but um, I'm gonna talk about it anyway. You've all heard me talk about my daughter Annie, and she's been on the podcast briefly a couple of times. Annie and Jack are getting married May 2nd this year. I think it's about 40 days away, and so that's a big deal. It's awesome. This all happened while I was also sort of um, contemplating my year anniversary from the hospital. Had a lot of stuff going on, um, and I struggled with it at first. At first, I would not acknowledge that, and I sort of knew this was coming, and I wouldn't acknowledge it. I would not have a conversation with her about it. I told her nope every time she brought it up because I'm not ready. It has nothing to do with her or Jack. I'm fine with it. Uh, I, I I don't have any issues with those two. It's my own dad age issues more than anything else. So I've been explaining it to people like this because I am a tennis person. So there's stories in the past. Every high school's had it where you've got the number one player from the school, the hometown. Let's say it's I grew up in Vincennes, so let's say I've played number one singles for 3 years. I've always been at the top, number one, right? And then my senior year, some foreign exchange student decides to come to my town who happens to be a better tennis player than me. And I go from number one to number two like that. And that part bothered me the most because I've always thought I'm going to be the one to fix things. When something goes wrong, I'm going to fix it. And I'm going to be the first call. And I say it's my family, it's also my wife. I'm not saying it's just me, but I feel like I got bumped down a slot in the lineup because someone is better than me. And that's difficult. I think I'm cool with it now. I'm still talking about it, so maybe I'm not. But that's where I was at right away, is that I lost that being the fixer, being the hero, being the one who can make it better. And I can still do that, but I'm not the first one anymore. And that's difficult for me. That, along with, how did this happen? I've mentioned before, I turned 50 last April. It didn't bother me. I thought it would, but it didn't bother me. I didn't feel old. I felt fine, other than the hospital thing. It didn't bother me. This thing made me think about where I'm at in my life age wise. That I'm old enough to have a 21-year-old that can get married, can move out, get an apartment, have a husband. Ugh. That's no slam on you, Jack. I would say that. I'll probably say that forever. Um, that one bothered me quite a bit, that I got to this point. Um, so they are wedding planning, and I can tell you, I hope to never plan another wedding again. I'm not. I have nothing to do with it, but I hear it's a lot of work, and Annie and um, my wife, constant. My job, and this is sort of, could be a little tennis, but I've used this on the tennis court, that I struggled initially with all this wedding stuff because I didn't know what my role was. Am I doing something? And it took me a while to figure out what my role was. And now I know it's money. It's to say yes. Do you like this? What do you think about this? Can we do this? It's just say yes. And it's day of the wedding to make sure nothing goes wrong. Like, she may not think that. She's not going to listen to this, but I'm going to watch and I'm going to observe. And if something is not working the way she wants it to, I'm going to fix it, or I'm going to have assigned someone to fix it. And I did this on the tennis court about making sure people know their responsibilities, because when you don't, you're lost. And I think in anything I do, or tennis players, if you're not sure what your role is, you're going to struggle on the court. You're going to struggle in a lot of stuff. But once I figured out, number one is money. Hand them my credit card and say yes to things. Don't argue about it. Just let it go. Even if I don't agree with something, I ain't saying it. No chance. Um, so for you tennis players that still listen to this, if you're not sure what to do, figure it out. What is your role? What's your role with your partner? Are you the finisher? Are you the starter? Is it to set them up? Are you hitting the last shot? Are you the cheerleader? And if you don't know what that is, figure it out. And while you're figuring out, just hit good tennis shots. Just hit quality shots anywhere you want. Just make sure they're good, not winners, until you find your path. Because it took me a while to figure out what the role is. Um, so that's exciting news. We're pumped about that. It's coming up quick in Lake Geneva. You're not invited because it's a small wedding, but maybe I'll podcast from it. I will do a wedding podcast. That would be awesome. Anna, you gonna let me do that? So we're super pumped about that and happy for them. And um, I figure if Annie could move to LA from here, knowing one person in the world out there, and she came back happy, healthy, not an alcoholic, not a drug addict, still functional, then he's a pretty good dude because he made sure she was well taken care of. So I'm on board with it. So I got a lot of stuff going on. I got to keep myself healthy for this wedding stuff. Um, so again, most of you know me if you listen that I'm generally a crier. I've been in I was the best man in two weddings. My brothers and Freakus gave best man speeches and cried like a baby. There's probably video somewhere, and this is just my brother and one of my best friends. Um, Cried like crazy, and I have tried to think about what I'm going to say for Annie, um, and I can't do it. Actually, right now I'm a little. If you watch it on YouTube, even just talking about it gets me a little messed up. I don't know how I'm going to survive. I need some tips, some advice, something, because just even the thought of having to give a short speech about her is impossible. I'm not going to make it. I'm going to need backups. I'm not going to write it down. I'm going to have some ideas, but I don't think I can survive. I think it's going to be one of those things where I just have to give up and walk away, so I don't embarrass her and myself. It's going to be, I don't know. I don't think I can do it. I'm going to try, but right now I can't even think about how to start without getting messed up. So, dads, if you've done this before, help me out. What do I do here? Um, Lastly, and this could be a little bit of tennis. It's again, this is not a full tennis podcast. I'm not sure I'll ever go back to that. I might, but I might just blend it in as we go. I just finished a book called Let Them by Mel Robbins. You can look her up. She's kind of one of those self help, motivational speaker type people. Someone recommended, I gave a presentation, a speech, and someone recommended I read it because it kind of fits how I talk, what I things I believe in. And so basically, Let Them is a book about letting adults be assholes. Sorry, I swore again, Mom. I said I won't, but when you join me next, you can say asshole once. So it's about letting adults behave badly and not affecting you. And I'm a grudge holder. I actually, no joke, have a list in my phone, in my notes, of people who have wronged me in the past for pretty much my adult life. People that did things to me that were so evil that I wish bad things upon them. So now you're judging me, but come on, you guys can't tell me you don't have somebody that you'd like some revenge on. So I've been that way forever. I don't act on these things instantly. I'm pretty quiet. I don't get into a lot of confrontations, but if someone wrongs me or my family, I remember it. I hold a grudge. And so this book is about not doing that and being an adult, which I'm not in that case. So basically, if I'm having a conversation with Annie and she says something stupid and I don't agree with it, or she says something mean, I have to let her. I can let her behave that way, and I'm going to choose how to react. I'm not going to take that the rest of my day and be angry. So, one of my examples is I drive every day on 94 to and from the WAC. It's about half an hour drive, and people are freaking crazy, and I am not a conservative driver. I'd say I lean on the aggressive side. But I will see people driving 110 miles an hour, weaving in and out of traffic, tailgating people, just incredibly dangerous stuff. And it gets me so round up that I get to work and I'm still pissed off. And I'm 2 hours later, I still remember it and I hang on to that stuff. And this is about letting people act poorly. Obviously, there's times you don't if it's dangerous, if it's a safety issue, someone's going to hurt themselves or others. That's a different topic. I have it when I come home here, and every cabinet in my house is open. and every light is on and the heat is on and all the windows are open. Like that stuff, uh, I'm terrible at it. I will hang on to it. It gets me angry. It will ruin hours of my day. So it's kind of just let them do that. And then the second part is let me respond in this way. So you allow people to do dumb stuff and try not to let it bother you. And I need this from a just a personal non-work standpoint, but I've used it a lot on the tennis court lately because I've talked about it. You can't cover everything, and I think you ought to start, especially on the doubles court, start choosing one thing that you're going to let your opponent do that wins a point, but it doesn't bother you. So, for instance, I had a drill this morning. I got to play in with some good dudes, good players. I hadn't played with them before. This guy Keith, great two-handed backhand from the ad side, and he could take it cross court, this little angle, and he loved that shot. And he got me one time, first time. So I immediately went back to him, gave him the same shot, and he missed it. So I wasn't reactionary. He got me several times, but my partner and I chose to let him have that because he was hitting across the court from the baseline. He had to get it past two good players over a slightly higher net to a really small space. And so we decided, well, I decided because I'm the coach, we're going to let him have that. That's going to be the shot we say, take it, because we don't think you can win a whole match on that. We're going to cover everything else. We're giving you that. So when he beat us a couple times, we're like, great shot, Keith. You can have it. We're not concerned you're going to beat us. The only thing we have to worry about is we can't let him do it on game points, tiebreakers, end of sets, big moments, right? And it ended up working out. He hit probably 5 of them, but we covered 20 of the other shots from him and his partner. Um, Somebody hits an amazing drop shot, miss hit, cross court, past you, you can't get it. Let them have it, right? If somebody's an incredible lobber, you're not going to let them have that, but you're going to give them a few ground stroke winners with flames on them because that's not their thing. Somebody's an amazing volleyer. You're not going to let them win that way, but you'll let them beat you on a couple of lobs. So I think it's a good way to plan your tennis, plan your life. I definitely need some therapy on this because I'm like I said, I hang on to stuff. The interesting thing about me, and some of you may be this way on a tennis court now, and I know I don't play. Nothing bothers me. I let everything go. I coach my players. Who cares? Let it go. Move on. Next point. Um, I can do it great in a sporting or athletic situation. I'm terrible about it in my real life, and I've been practicing letting sort of trying to keep my mouth shut because I get myself in trouble at home all the time because I'll make the comment that's in my head. I actually say it, and then everybody in my house hates my guts for a while, right? But they also have to let me be who I am. And that goes back to the beginning part, right? About finding the people, being able to be yourself, being around the people who bring you peace. My dog, Willie, he brings me peace. I can say whatever I want. He doesn't care. I can look him right in the eye and tell him what an ugly dog he is and that all the other dogs are prettier and he's slow and he's fat. He doesn't care. That's what I need to be around, more dogs. Um, so one thing too, I'm gonna go backwards just a bit to when I mentioned about my headed down the road of having the Beetus. So I always thought as an adult, my adult age, that someone with diabetes had to be 600 pounds, sit in a golden corral, sweaty, no exercise, um, shoving Sour Patch Kids down their face all the time. I mean, I'm 51. I'm not, according to some medical things, I'm overweight, but I'm not obese. I'm not overweight. I didn't know that it could happen to generally healthy people. I've got to do some research, and I don't have it, but he used the word pre, and he used the word we'll check again in 6 months if we need to do medication, which kind of, I think he said that just to get me fired up to fix this problem. But that's what I thought it was. And I don't, I guess I don't believe that anymore, but I'm working on it. I am I'm about an hour away from being able to shut my day down, go to bed, and make it 11 straight days. So if I do another podcast, I will report back. That's pretty much all I got, guys. I know it's not real tennis stuff and it's just talking about myself, but um, I will be tomorrow surgery. Next week, I'm heading to Naples, Florida with my buddies Frika and Niche for another 50th birthday trip for Frika. Happy birthday, dude. He chose Naples. Gonna be three old dudes walking around the beach. Maybe we'll get metal detectors and some sandals with black socks. That's probably where we're going. I expect a lot of coffee, a lot of sitting around talking stupid. But if you want to hear about those trips we've had, we've got a podcast called Growing Up Alice's. You can find that as well. And that's the three of us just talking about our growing up, things we do, things we did. It's really, really stupid, but it's funny. So as usual, you can watch this, just me chatting, on YouTube. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok at Scott Ficks-Tennis and Pickleball. Thanks for the two of you that are still listening. Mom, sorry I swore, but you have 3 credits, maybe 4, for swearing next time you're on. Hope everybody's good, and I'll see y'all in the court soon. Later.